Was that true? Because I did watch the documentary. Was it true that you would come in and you were dope sick, you would lay on the couch and people would stay with you 24/7?
100%.
365.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
At that point, I wasn't there, but at that point, they didn't turn anybody away.
Yeah.
If you're going through withdrawal, there were kicking couches, as we called them, throughout the place, and they would sit there with a bucket.
Yeah.
And the concept here was a person who was there a month helped the person who was there 2 weeks. That person then helps the guy who just came in the door. And the slogan came, you can't keep it unless you give it away.
Right.
And that's how that whole self-help concept came about. And so, you know, at that point, people were coming. Well, what happened was black people started showing up. Now, we're on the beach in Santa Monica.
Right.
Blacks weren't allowed on the beach.
Oh, back then, yeah.
They weren't allowed on the beach.
Holy shit.
But this guy, Chuck Diederich was his name.
Yeah.
He says, I don't care. Come on in. And then the word really spread.
Yeah.
Like, what's this? What's going on? You know, the city council, you know, came in and said to him, you can't do this. You're not zoned for this. And they said, if you don't leave, you're going to go to jail. And he went to jail for a month.
No shit.
Yeah. Which made him a bigger hero.
Right.
And more people found out because he stood up. And it was like, wow. And the next thing you know, the politicians are coming down. Because every Saturday night there's a party, an open house.
Oh, really?
At every Synanon house in the country. There was every Saturday night, we opened the doors for people to come in, see what we're doing. And people would come in and see people kicking on the couch. And we had a lot of musicians, the ones that my father knew. Yeah. And there would be a band playing, they'd be dancing, and they'd see what was going on. Blacks, whites, addicts, everybody kind of getting along, helping each other.
Yeah. And
it just exploded. You know, the word was out. There was a movie that was made about it with Eartha Kitt, you know, and called Synanon. It was called Synanon. And it was out there, and people just heard about it. And proclamations from the politicians of what you're doing, you know. It was crazy. Then they started calling it the miracle on the beach.
Yeah.
And it was a miracle on the beach. You know, and people would bring their kids in and they would
I don't mean to cut you off because it just popped into my head. It just popped into my head. Why don't we do that now?
Well, we do.
Like, why don't we just go back to the basics of like helping that person? Because I quit cold turkey. I mean, I'll tell you, I lived in hell for 5 straight fucking weeks. But like, once I kicked it, I was like, I told myself I'll never go back to that shit. And I didn't go to heroin, but I was one step away.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
As Synanon grew over the years, and people would, you know, it went from being, you know, a place just to go kick and that to like a lifestyle.
Yeah, you had to go.
We were getting money, donations, contributions. We were getting money like crazy.
Yeah.
And here we were. And the only rules of Synanon at that point, no violence, no drugs, no alcohol, and then eventually no smoking, which was the last one.
Right.
That was the last one.
Yeah.
You know, that was a big one. But people saw this and go, well, what are they doing there? Because at that point, believe me, the only place you could go was a place that was a federal prison in Lexington, Kentucky, they called KY, okay? Which is where they sent addicts who got busted.
Oh, really?
And it was just hard. It was like
It was hell.
it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was a terrible thing
Yeah.
that they did. And this place, Synanon, was catching on. And finally, he got, you know, people were donating. He got more money, and he went and he bought a bigger place down the beach.
Yeah.
And more people were coming in from all over. And he never charged anybody. He never took money from the government. It was all donations, and it was just built. We started a business.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had trucks, you had
We had airplanes, buses, trucks.
Airplanes too?
We had our own radio station. It was crazy how this place started building. He started a business selling pens, pencils with the name of your company. They call that advertising and gift specialties.
Yeah.
And everybody buys them, every business.
Right.
Well, what do addicts do? What are addicts the best at? Hustling.
Yes, absolutely.
We were natural born hustlers.
Absolutely.
So he put teams of people together who were there long enough that they wouldn't leave or use, and he would send us around the country. And we would sell these pens and pens. And we'd go in and say, oh, hi, Mr. Jones. I know you're the president of this bank. You have pens and pencils. My name's Mike Gimbel. I'm a recovering addict. I live in Synanon. We're nonprofit. We don't take money, and we're trying to help people. If you're buying your pens and you buy them from us, we're a tax write-off, and you're going to help addicts. Who's going to say no to that?
Nobody.
We became the third largest in the nation within 5 years.
Wow.
15 million a year we were making just on that. Then we sent teams out trying to hustle items,
Yeah.
And we got computers, and we hustled cotton that we would then rehustle to someone else, and we hustled cattle that we used for our food. I mean, it was genius.
It was
to
genius.
say the least. This guy was a genius. We're taking more and more people in.
So where did all the money go?
Well,
He bought a lot.
well, we used it to build the facility at first.
Yeah.
You have to remember.
Because you went from the beach, then you went out into the...
We started buying more facilities.
Right.
We opened up one in New York. We opened one up in Detroit. Then we went up and down the coast of California, where we opened several facilities, one in Oakland, San Francisco, Marin County, which was north. We built a ranch.
The ranch.
And he built all this up. And it was, it wasn't like he was pocketing the money. He wasn't. All the money was going back into building.
Yeah.
It's clear that he had a vision of what he wanted and how he built this thing up. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I got there in 1972, and it was still growing. And we had the facilities up and down the coast and Santa Monica. And I went in the Santa Monica facility, and I stayed there several months. And they put me in a boot camp in Santa Monica, in a warehouse. And it was an experiment with about 50 of us to see, discipline.
Right.
I talked earlier about the gut.
Yeah, the gut.
Toughening up the gut. And so I lived it like in a boot camp. It was crazy. And then after a few months, I got so into Synanon. Okay, I like drank the Kool-Aid, as they say.
Yeah.
And I'm becoming addicted to Synanon because he's pounding in our brain, if you leave, you're a junkie. You'll be dead. You're going to die. And that went into our, and me, I'm sitting there going, I will die. I'm not playing. Some of these other people may not. I will die because if I ever go back east.
Yeah.
And so I got into it. I went through the boot camp and I marched better and I ran and I exercised. And then we had this game called the Synanon game.
Yeah.
Now this was the thing that makes Synanon different than anything else.
Right.
The idea was drug addicts want what they want when they want it. They only think with their gut. You think first before you act.
Yeah.
Addicts don't do that.
True.
Addicts go, there's drugs, I want the drugs, and I want them now.
And I'll get them.
And I'll get them.
Yeah.
So your gut is like nothing.
Yeah.
What Chuck Diederich developed was a way to toughen up your gut, because he knew that was what made the difference between an addict and a normal person who made good decisions.
Yeah.
So you'd go in there and I, we would work, we would do jobs, we would do different things. And then every day we would go into the Synanon game. And in that game, you could say whatever you want to anybody in the room, in your circle. You just can't threaten or commit physical violence.
Was there any ever violence?
Not my. I don't ever remember a violence that happened.
That's crazy.
Maybe a threat,
Yeah.
but never really violence. Now, that was in the game. And you could say whatever you want to anybody.
Yeah.
It didn't matter, right? You could call it, you fucker. You out on the street, you wouldn't last a week, or don't tell me what,
Right.
because nobody likes being told what to do.
Yeah,
especially
hell
addicts.
no.
And so then the game would go usually for an hour, maybe 2 hours. And after the game was over, we call it out of the game. Now there was a dichotomy of in the game when you could say whatever you want.
Well, let me ask you this, not to cut you off, but like, if we're in the game and there's 25 people in the game, could they go like just start peppering one person? Could they get fucked? Like,
oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah. That would happen a lot.
Oh really? They would just start pouring on.
People would team up.
Oh.
Now, normally size-wise, they were normally 15 at the top.
Okay.
Normally, but look, there would be guys in there that were dirty.
Yeah.
They would steal food, whatever, and we would bust them and then put them in a game and beat the shit out of them.
Oh, you would call them out? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that was our discipline.
Yeah.
That was the discipline. But then out of the game, we had to, and this is the secret, we had to act as if everything was great. So when you're out of the game working, hey, Mike, how you doing today? I'm doing great. Meanwhile, I feel like shit.
Right.
But you act as if, because you're toughening the guy.
Yeah.
Normally you would say, oh, I feel like horrible, blah, blah. No, feel good, I feel great. Right on. Then you go in the game and say how you really feel. And that was the difference. And as you stayed in Synanon longer, you would play games longer. You would have a game, maybe you had a girlfriend, or some people were married, or you play with your boss. You would play more games, but that was the thing that held Synanon together, because that was how we disciplined and took care of business.
Right.
And the longer you were there, and the longer I was there, it just kept getting bigger.
Because they also, watching the documentary, they allowed people that weren't addicts to come in, just regular people off the street, right?
Synanon got to be so popular. Because you got to remember, this is California.
Yeah. In
the 60s and the 70s. There were a lot of, strange groups that were meeting, different kind of hippie groups, that were developing. Jonestown started back then, and a lot of other different places, because that was what was going on in California.
Yeah.
It was like the hippie movement.
Yeah.
And so when people heard and really came to that party on Saturday night, people said, this is nice, this is good. And we started what we called game clubs for the people who weren't addicts.
Right.
And they would come in and play, and you'd have a husband and a wife
Get after it.
saying what was on their mind. Now, if they didn't listen to the out of the game, I'm sure there would be a problem.
Right.
But they had to understand the rules.
Right.
I remember the Oakland Raiders came in and tried playing the game.
Oh, really?
Up in Oakland. Yeah. Because it helped them get,
No shit.
instead of
Did it
beating each
work?
other up.
Yeah.
They loved it. And the game clubs started this, like I said, Detroit, Chicago, New York. These are just game clubs for people who weren't addicts.
Wow.
We called them squares,
Right. Squares,
lifestylers.
Yeah.
And people, when they came in, this Diederich was such a genius. He said, well, if you're coming in, well, you have a law practice. Why don't you run it from here?
Right. Why don't you run it out of here?
Yeah. Or we had a woman, people always know rice cakes.
Yeah.
Right? Well, the original rice cake was made by a company called Chico San in San Francisco.
Okay.
Well, the woman who built that moved into Synanon
Come on.
and gave the whole company to Synanon.
No way.
People were I'm telling you, we had doctors, we had
I
professors.
saw that. Everything.
We had every profession would move in, because, first of all, it was an experiment
Right.
for people to look at. How's he doing this?
Right.
What's going on here? That was one
With
thing.
no drugs and no alcohol, by the way.
And the others were coming in going, I'd like to live that kind of life.
Right.
No violence, no drugs, no cigarettes, no alcohol, and it built. It just, and all I can say is it just kept growing and growing. And for me personally, because again, I'm right on, I started rising up the ladder. Right?
You're
And
like one of his
and the
top
founder, the guru Diederich, And the other part was he married a black woman,
I saw that.
which also was a big symbol
Right.
of the place. He lived up in Marin County at this facility,
Yeah.
and it was the best of the best. You had everything. It was just the best where he was,
Right.
you know, and the home he lived in. You know, he was the guru. You know, he had the best.
So, but everybody that hasn't seen the show, like everybody was like community living. So, like that's why he kept saying the best of the best.
Yeah. No, we all had. We all lived really well,
Right.
considering where we all came from.
And you had no money though, by the way.
We didn't have money, but they would give you a little money each month, called walk around money.
Yeah.
Because there were cities and towns that we might take a bus trip.
Right.
You know, a few dollars. You didn't make any kind of money.
Right.
You know, but I ended up making my way up the ladder, and I got hired by the board of directors. Most of them were non-drug addicts. They were professionals. And I got hired to basically take care of them and their families and their homes. You know, like Chuck Diedrich had his. I was taking care of the board of directors, you know, and I had a staff of people that would take care of the executive office and all the games they were in and all the meetings they had, we would tape it. We made a history.
Yeah.
Because this guy knew, you know, for posterity's sake.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was my job. And as an addict, you know, as one of the addicts, it was probably one of the highest jobs you could have.
Right.
Because I was hanging out with all the
board
squares and the board members,
yeah.
you know, and doing all that.
Squares.
So I was living pretty good,
Yeah.
you know, all the time. And time went on, and there was a girl who we were friends. She was a chef, and she cooked for the founder.
Was she like close to Michelin star or something? Like she was that good?
Oh,
Chef?
she was top
top
chef.
Yeah.
But she was an addict
Yeah.
from Detroit.
A lot of them are.
And I met her when I was in Santa Monica, and she was the group that took me back to Tamales, to where the founder was, up in Tamales Bay in Marin County. And we became really good friends. I mean, we were like great friends. And so once a week, the founder would have this big luncheon in his house, and he would invite special people. And if you got invited to a luncheon, this place was called Home Place. If you got to the Home Place for this special lunch, big deal. That was a big thing because you're with the founder.
Yeah.
Now, you know, and he's pontificating 24 hours a day. Everywhere he went, there was a microphone.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
We had a radio station. Wherever you went, you could hear the founder
He's always
spouting off
talking.
his philosophy.
Right.
Morning, noon, and night. Every table, he had a special table for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. Then
I saw that. And there was always a microphone.
There was
there.
always a microphone. You know. So anyway, so me and this chef, her name was Stephanie, my good friend. I helped her do these lunches because I was, you know, the board of directors was there,
Right.
and Chuck. So we were doing. So one day we were working together, cleaning up, and they were all still sitting around, and the founder and my direct boss, who was the president, looked at the two of us, and they go, you know, the two of you make a good team. You know, you do these, you make a good team. You should get married. I said, what? They said, you should get married. You're a good team. 3 days later,
You guys got married?
we were married.
No way.
We got married. Now, I think we loved each other because we were close friends.
Right.
We just never had sex,
Right.
you know. But she was as into the place as I was.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So she believed everything.
So she believed everything, and I was just like, and so we got married, crazy as it sounds. And so that allowed us to travel wherever the founder went. Like if he'd go to Santa Monica for a month or a week, we would go with him, you know, and the board would go, or if they went to San Francisco, so we were like part of this family.
Right.
That was that was treated, because she was an addict too.
Yeah.
And would be treated like really well. The place was so big that the longer you stayed, the more little gifts you got, more goodies.
Yeah.
if you stayed there 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. Because he now was saying Synanon is a religion.
Yeah, that's really what.
This is not just a drug program.
Right.
Normally a drug program, you go there a year or two and you leave.
Yeah.
He wanted the people to stay forever.
Yeah.
And the majority of people agreed. And then he would do different tests. He would test us. One time he would say,
He was brilliant, that guy.
Yeah. He was insane.
And also insane. But that's what brilliant is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look at Einstein.
He would say, we're all too fat. We're going to lose weight.
Because he probably wanted to lose weight,
He
right?
wanted to lose weight.
So everybody's fat. Yeah.
And so we started this, this campaign where everybody had to lose weight. So once a week, whatever facility you were in, you went down and you got weighed in. And your name went on a chart. And, some people would come down in their underwear. Some people, it was just, to try to be fun, make fun out of it. And then we started to exercise, running in place, step ups. Yeah. So now you were losing weight and we're exercising and it's combined.
By the way, did he lose weight?
Not much. No, this was not do as I. This was do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
You know.
Always curious if that ever worked out.
No, he didn't do anything. He made us do.
Yeah. Right.
The whole way.
Right.
Believe me. And so, but we try to make fun out of it. So people lost weight and they exercised. The thing is, if you didn't lose weight, because we had.
Then you had the game.
There you go.
And then you get blasted.
You get blasted in a game. And the next thing you know, you lost that weight.
Yeah.
That was the power of the game. And that's what he was building. Our rules, our law, we didn't have a police force, we didn't have, use the game. And it worked because it's peer pressure.
Yeah.
So after that, then we exercised, that was another one that we got into, And as time went on, there were more and more things that he would do, that would, we gave up sugar and all that as part of.
I remember the smoking, the sugar. So then take me down the road of like when things started going south.
Well, the thing that was interesting.
And how many years were you there?
I was there for about almost 7 years. And the interesting thing, and again, this was part of his insanity genius, every time he put a test, if you did the test, you became more loyal. If you didn't do the test, you leave. And people would leave. No matter everything he did, a certain number of people would leave.
No matter what?
Yeah. I'm not going to lose weight. You can't tell me what to do.
Right. Or I'm not going to stop smoking.
I'm not going to. Now, the smoking, that was early on. That was early on. But people left.
I'm sure people left for that. Yeah.
So now here he was doing these tests, and everybody that stayed was a better soldier. A better soldier for Synanon. And as time went on, he would grow. Up to this point, like if Stephanie and I wanted to have a kid, we would have a kid in Synanon at that point. Or if somebody else came in with their kids, we had a school. We had our own school for kids, and we had a school for, babies that were born. We called the hatchery, and they were taken care of. You didn't take care of them.
That was a little weird.
You turned them over to Synanon, to the school. You could go visit and hang out, stuff like that, but it was different.
They also said that the school, because it wasn't up to, code of school, like you guys didn't, like you guys actually tested better. The kids in high school tested better than the normal kids in high school, but it wasn't up to college standard code.
Yeah, some of the people who, remember, we talk about people who joined Synanon, a lot were professors from UCLA that came in basically to study us. Yeah. And these guys were geniuses, and they studied the school and did a study and a report, and the kids did better. And then he opened up a school for delinquent kids. These were kids from Synanon. Right. Then he opened one up for troubled kids. Okay, so basically we were now taking kids in, and the kid business was getting really, really big, really big at the time. He reached a point where he said, no one wants to take care of the kids in the world. You know, they're giveaways, you know, they're abused. And he was right. You know, these are kids who became bad kids, and he says, and nobody cares about these kids but us. So we're going to expand our taking kid business from the outside, and we're not going to have any more children in Synanon.
Like, you can't have any more.
Any Synanon. People who lived in Synanon could not have any kids anymore because he was so obsessed with taking care of the outside kids. That was his rationale. He also would say stupid things like, why do you have a kid anyway? Something to look like you? To carry your name on? That's selfish. You know? You don't have take care of these kids. These kids are a mess.
He was crazy.
Right? Well, I remember when he said that, we all kind of looked around and it's going like, what? What's he getting to?
Right.
You know? And well, within a couple of weeks, he declared that all the men who were, I think 23 years old, I don't know, he picked some year, all the men had to get vasectomies.
Holy shit. And you
Think
had
about it.
doctors on the staff, right?
We had Beverly Hills doctors were donating to us. If I ever needed to go to a dentist or a doctor, well, Beverly Hills doctors, they were giving all their services to us for free all the time. So here I am, Mr. Right On. And I go, okay. And I say to Stephanie, all right, well, you know, I guess I got to have a vasectomy. I didn't know what a vasectomy was.
Right.
You have to remember, we've talked about my story. 14, I'm using drugs.
Right.
21, I go to Synanon. I had no experience with anything.
Right. Other than drugs.
I didn't know what a vasectomy was.
Right.
And so I go and I get my vasectomy and I come back, you know, and Stephanie's and we're laughing because I'm putting ice on my balls, you know, and the true story, this is a true story. She says, well, try to go to the bathroom, you know. So I take the ice off and I go into the bathroom, and for the first time, the ice wore off. Oh. And I stand up and get my first shot of pain, and I went, I fell right on my face. And I'm holding my nose, I'm holding my balls. And if you notice, I have a little hook in my nose. I never fixed it because it's my story. They go, what happened to your nose? I go, I got a vasectomy. It's a true story. I don't tell it much, but it's a true story. And it was crazy. It was crazy. But 2 weeks later, maybe 2 to 3 weeks later, Stephanie comes in and says, I'm pregnant. I went, shit, you know, because now I know she has to go have an abortion. Right. I don't know what an abortion is. Right? I don't know what an abortion is. It was, as I look back, it was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. God gave me a gift, and I threw it back in his face. I mean, it was a gift.
It was.
You know, and it was a message. Believe me, I was there long enough to be able to say, let's go. To Stephanie, let's leave. You know, we've been here a couple of years. Right. Let's go. No, we're you know, I had my vasectomy. So I go with her to get her abortion. And I don't know what it is. And I go in the room, and all I see is like a vacuum tube that goes over it. And that's the abortion. Like a vacuum cleaner. And she ended up having problems for about a year after that, where she was getting infections, and it was just not a nice time for her. You know, I was feeling really bad. But we went through it together, you know, and we kept our marriage and our life together, and we loved each other, and we worked through it. But we never talked about it because, you know, what were we going to say?
Right.
We should have left. We should have. No, because if we should have left, we would have.
Right.
That didn't even cross our minds.
Right.
Because we were brainwashed.
Brainwashed.
That's it. That's the key. We were brainwashed.
Yeah.
I mean, totally brainwashed. We didn't question anything. We just did what we were told.
I have a question. That time, because I could see, and this is what we talked about with people, like when tough times happen, did either one of you say, oh, maybe we should start, why don't we just take a shot, maybe we'll do some heroin and like that'll cure our problems? Did she ever think about doing
Never.
that? That's good.
It's a crazy, that's what I mean. When I said we went in there on October 1st, that was it.
That was it.
We didn't, you know. Now, when you're there like about 6 months, 3 months, you go into that game and you sit there and go, shit, I want to get high so bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, after getting
or I
your
want to
nuts
drink
ripped off.
so bad.
Yeah.
That's where you let that out.
Yeah.
And then when the game's over, you act as if
Everything's good.
that's the power. That was the power of the game. And we were, both of us were so vulnerable to being brainwashed at that same level.
Yeah.
I mean, if she would have, if either of us would have been more mature and said, no, we're not getting, no, you're not getting a vasectomy. You're not even 25 years old.
Right. You don't even know what it is.
You're not getting a vasectomy. We're married.
Yeah.
You know, let's go. Never. Not even when the abortion came up.
Yeah.
Because that was my gift.
Right.
I did the vasectomy, but I still had a chance.
I mean, that's crazy that it even happened. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was just, it's the biggest regret I have in probably my life.
Yeah.
Because all my brothers had kids and grandkids and all this, and I got tons of nieces and nephews and all this, but never my own kids. And that was something I really, really, really screwed up by staying there. But we hung in there,
right?
You know, because we were, you know, and we were fine. We had motorcycles, you know, we each had motorcycles, and we were living a great life.
Yeah.
Trust me, the best food, you know, we were living great. You know, because of the jobs we had, we were flying back and forth to Santa Monica or wherever.
Yeah.
You know, had a great life that way. And we had you know, we were able to be together and live together and that kind of stuff as time went on. And then the founder's wife, the black woman, Betty, her name was Betty D. She was the nice person.
Right.
And he was the tough guy.
You're right.
And she would always nourish people.
Yeah.
And she died. And that really threw him for a loop.
That's when he went south.
You know, that's when he really started getting crazy.
Drinking again.
Well, not at that point.
Oh no.
No, that came later.
Oh, okay.
He was just really upset.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone could tell, and because, you know, about whether or not he wanted to drink, which eventually he did.
Right.
Like Stephanie, she sees him every day.
Yeah.
You know, I see the board of directors every day. If they would have been drinking, I would have known it. You know what I mean? Exactly. At that point.
Exactly.
They did start later on toward the end, which was their demise. But, so he, you know, at the same time this is going on, several lawyers, several people who left Synanon, and we had their kids. And they wanted their kids back. Oh. And Chuck Dieter said, hell no. They belong to Synanon. Ooh. Well, these people went out and got lawyers, and they started suing Synanon, one after another. And we would obviously lose the cases, you know, and have to pay or whatever. And then he started freaking out and getting paranoid. Very, very paranoid. Anyone that's seen that Jonestown thing movie, just like that, like he was getting nuts. Yeah. He thought everybody was out to be against us. Right. He started saying, hey, when people come on our property and we didn't invite them, you stop them. you interrogate them. And we started interrogating them. Like, you know, like if you drove in and looked around, we would grab them, sit them down, and then we'd shave their heads.
No.
Yeah. Don't come on our property again. Send them away. And he started getting really like belligerent and very violent in his talking about that. He even came up with a sign that said, if anybody comes on our property and it's a lot of people and you need help with those people, you just yell, "Hey Rube." And yeah, "Hey Rube, hey Rube," and all of a sudden 50 people would be coming down to help you. That's how crazy it got. Eventually, his paranoia got so bad that he went out and he bought $100,000 worth of weapons.
Which the thing started with no
violence, right.
no violence, no drugs, and now it
and,
crashed and burned.
And he had these weapons, and because I was the executive office, you know, I had to take care of the weapons for the board, you know, and I had my 9mm that I had to keep, and my boss said, "You learn how to take this apart and put it back together." I'm going, "Oh, yeah. What are you talking about?" And the violence, you know, kept going on. The word got out in the community out there that the punk kids, you know, because we would beat them, these kids, especially the bad kids. And then they would run away. And they'd go to a neighbor. "Oh, that Synanon place is beating me up." And then the sheriff would show up. And it got to be crazy. And that's when Diedrich got even bigger nuts, because he wanted to, you know, protect us from the world. And so we did. And we were and every Sunday we would have a picnic.
No matter what?
Every Sunday. That was it. Like Saturday nights were the game, were the parties, and then Sunday would be a barbecue. Like if we were in Santa Monica on the beach, it was really neat. Up in Marin County, we'd have, you know, but when we got the weapons, they were now called the shoot, and everybody would go and practice their target practicing.
I saw that.
And everybody would practice their shooting, and it was crazy, you know. So, you know, that went on, and it was one of those things. The violence thing was interesting because I don't think that many people left. I think at that point, if you were there and you had been there a while, you bought into this protection.
Right.
The cult.
Yeah, it's a cult now.
You know, like you're a religious cult. And they're out to get you. Now you've invested 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 years.
In the show, everybody shaved their heads too, right?
Well, that was an interesting side story. You know, if a man did something wrong, you know, stole something, not bad, but little, stole something or said something, threatened somebody, your punishment was to have your head shaved, and you went into the pot sink and you cleaned all the pots and pans for a week or something. That was your punishment. So when you went into a game, they would beat the crap out of you. You know, you're the bald head. And sometimes if you did something, they'd hang it around your neck. If it was something, you know, whatever, if you stole something. If you were a woman and you committed the same crime, you had to wear a hairnet and clean the pots and pans. So there was a big game with the founder and the board of directors, you know, and I'm there taping it. My job was to tape it. And I'm there. And it came out that this woman who was a kind of a real, back then, a woman's liber. You know, back in the 70s, that was the beginning. And she had either stolen or didn't give something back to a radio or something. And so Diedrich gets up, walks across the room to her, who's in the game, and says, "You know what? You're a big woman's liber, right? You know, if you really believe that you're equal to a man, go shave your head. Go in the pot sink like a man." And she went, okay. And she started going. Within 2 hours, every woman in Synanon shaved their heads. Every woman in Synanon shaved their heads.
Yeah, that's crazy.
To be supportive
Of her.
That was our women's movement.
Yeah.
It made it to the front page of magazines in France because they thought it was some kind of a stylish thing.
That's unbelievable.
And every woman shaved their heads.
Because I saw it in the show. I'm like, wow, every woman
Shaved
had the
their
crew
head.
cut.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was crazy.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazier.
So, all right, so you're in the 7th year now.
So I'm
and you're trying
getting toward, yeah, I guess close to the 7th. And so what he did when his wife died, he kind of went in and found another woman.
Okay.
And he courted her publicly, gave her flowers. And he demonstrated to all of us, how do you court a woman?
Right.
And they fell in love and they got married, right? Real cool. So he started talking about how you can learn to love someone if you do things, if you take care of them, if you say nice things to them. This is the process to fall in love. And he's talking. That's how I always did things. He would talk it up at his table, And I remember it was a Friday night, and we would get movies from Hollywood. They would send us movies. So we had Rocky, the Rocky 1, and everybody was so psyched. And I remember we're watching it, and then we come out of the movie, and the next thing we know, we hear over the loudspeaker, Chuck is saying, all relationships are over, all marriages are over, find a new partner. Now, we're talking 5 facilities where people are, right? And people, I guess I was married, I guess at this point, 3 years, 4 years.
Right.
But even his brother, who was there, was married 40 years. He made his brother, but he left, But everybody's relationship is over. It was like a meat market. Everybody's on the phone. Everybody's calling somebody, Some people looked at it as a nice thing because they, one of the women that I worked for, she was thrilled because her husband was horrible. So she was glad.
Yeah, she was glad.
She was glad.
That's unbelievable.
I still talk to her today. Today she's funny. And everybody's switching partners. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And this took like a week of people going to a facility, meeting somebody, dating them.
You didn't do that.
And here I was with Stephanie, and of course we did it.
You did do it.
Of course we did it. Stephanie went to another facility.
Yeah.
And was paired with some guy. I got paired with this super pretty girl who I always had a crush on years earlier, right? And so they hooked me up with her, and we get hooked up, and we go to whatever room we were in or something like that, and I couldn't have sex. I couldn't do it. I could not do it to Stephanie. I could not do it. Now, I got a vasectomy. They cut my balls. They did a lot of shit to me, but I could not be unfaithful to the woman that I loved. Right. Now, my parents were married 73 years. Maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah, maybe.
But something was built. So I'm up in Marin. She's at the ranch down at another place. And she was with a guy he wasn't even around yet.
Oh.
They just hooked him up, but she never even, that's another story.
Yeah.
And he was away and stuff like that. But we would talk every day, because she knew the phone numbers of the kitchens, because she was the cook.
Right.
So she gave me the phone number, and I would sneak down, and we would talk, and we would talk about this is, like what's going on? Have you met Lance yet? The guy. Yeah. No, I said, and I told her, I said, I cannot do this. I said, I might have to leave behind this one.
Yeah.
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 I mean, all the shit they did. And she said, well, if you leave, I'm leaving. I said, well, let me feel this out a little while. Well, because I didn't do it and I was resisting, They put me in games,
Oh, and they blasted.
and the founder, everybody, just blasted the shit out of me. It was terrible, you know. And I finally went up to my boss, who was the president. I said, look, I was like the top addict,
Right.
you know, in Synanon. And I said, if I can't do this, it's being a bad role model, I think I need to leave. Well, at that point, when you wanted to leave, you either got the shit beat out of you, your head shaved,
Right.
or something. It was like, because now when you want to leave, you're the enemy.
Right. They don't want you. Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, look, you know how close I am with you and your family and all I said, please just let me leave peacefully,
Right.
you know, and leave and just go. And so they did that, but what they did instead was they put me in the back of a pickup truck with nothing, just the clothes on my back.
That's it.
That's it. And they dumped me in the middle of San Francisco, which was about an hour away from where you were. And so, you know, here I am walking the street of San Francisco, and I'm not in Synanon. I don't know what I'm going to do. And being the nice Jewish boy that I am, I went and I called my family, called my mother and father. You know, I went to, you know, I got a phone booth, and, you know, back then you used to be able to bang.
Were you talking to your parents through Synanon?
Yeah, they actually came and visited.
Oh, they were okay. So
Yeah.
your relationship was good.
Yeah, no, it was good. They came to visit because they were thrilled, because they were actually going on vacation for a change, because they didn't have me, you know, to steal their money.
Yeah.
And so I got hold of them, and they said, get to the airport, you know. And so I hitchhiked to the airport. That was big back then.
Yeah.
You could hitchhike anywhere.
Yeah,
But,
anywhere.
and I hitchhiked to the airport, and they had my ticket, and I got back, and they got me home, and it was a pretty wild thing, obviously, going through that. And then the next day, I called Stephanie and told her what I did, and she says, I want to come home too, with you.
Yeah.
And so we did the same with her.
Because they put her in the back of a truck.
No, they gave her a ride.
They gave her a ride to the
They
airport.
gave her a ride to the airport, you know, because they loved her.
Yeah.
I mean, they loved her to death. Even the founder.
Right.
And that Betty, his wife, before she died, she loved Stephanie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know.
Well, they loved you too, but they threw you in the back of the truck.
Yeah, well, you know, that's what I got out of the whole thing. And so we both got home, and I didn't have a real trade other than I knew how to take care of the people business, help addicts. So I went downtown Baltimore. At that point, you talked earlier about why don't we do this? At that point, anyone that left Synanon who had been there a while, they opened up their own Synanon. New York, Phoenix House, Delancey Street in San Francisco, Habilitat in Hawaii.
Yeah.
People left who had been there a while and opened up their own Synanon, but they didn't do the violent part.
Right.
You know, they did play the game, but they built their own program because the word Synanon was so out there that people liked a knockoff.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to go, and they had heard about all the violence and the guns. You know, they understood that part.
Exactly.
And so in Baltimore, there was an inner city program that was trying to be Synanon. And I went there, I said, I just left Synanon. And they went, oh,
You could do this.
And so I got a job with them. I was making $7,000 a year, working the night shift at this program. And eventually, and Stephanie was a chef. She ended up working in a nursing home, cooking, and everything she made, she had to puree.
Yeah.
And I said, what did you serve? What did you serve? Oh, roast beef. Oh, great, yeah. We had to puree it. It was terrible. But we both worked, you know, and got an apartment, and were doing well. And about maybe a year and a, not quite a year and a half, we both volunteered to help the neighbors community to build a community drug center. This is my community where I was living. This is Welcome Back Cotter.
Yes.
Because I went to the schools.
Right.
and started talking to kids like, "Welcome back, Cotter."
Yeah.
And went to the newspaper and told them my story, and they printed it, and it was a pretty big deal because no one had ever told their story. So then the media started saying, "Tell us your story." So, and eventually Stephanie and we went our separate ways. She really wanted children.
Yeah.
So she moved back and ended up in Philadelphia, where she actually got remarried and had kids, which was such a nice thing.
Yeah.
I ended up being put on a drug advisory council for the county.
Yeah.
And then there was a job opening for the drug czar for Baltimore County, Maryland. And people said, "Are you going to apply?" I went, "I don't have a degree. I don't have nothing." They go, "You should apply." And I did. And it came down to 2 PhDs and me. And the county executive, his brother was an alcoholic. And he said, "You're it. I'm hiring you." He says, "And if you help one person, you've earned your keep." And so I started being the drug czar.
I say it all the time. When the life experiences are better than the book experiences, it trumps everything that can be out there. Because I'm not saying that you don't. People doctors go to school for a long time, learn a lot of stuff. But what we learned on the streets.
When I ran the drug program for Baltimore County, we had a program that worked with drunk drivers, a DWI program. And we had programs that were mostly for drug users. The only people I hired were recovering addicts.
Love it.
I was the only one in the state of Maryland that did that. I didn't care about a degree.
No.
I wanted a recovering addict.
Yeah.
And they tried to threaten to take money away from us because they wanted people who had credentials.
Right. Everybody wants the piece of paper,
I
but
remember,
the street cred is what it.
I went to the media and I said, "Look what they're trying to do. I got the best counselors in the world." And all the judges stood up for us because we were helping them.
Yeah.
Like they would get a drunk driver, right? They'd get a drunk driver. What do I do with them?
Yeah.
Most of the time they let them off with
Right.
probation.
Right.
But that doesn't deal with their alcoholism.
Yeah.
So I developed a program where I had counselors and evaluators in every court. And if they had a drunk driver, before they gave them a sentence, our person would evaluate them. And the judge would listen. And we would come back and say, he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Then the judge would listen and sentence them to our program.
To the program.
And it became a model for the nation.
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
A model for the nation. And so it set off a whole different thing back then. But being in my job and working with the media, led me to create my own show.
That was on.
It was on for 32 years or
Straight
so.
Talk is what it was.
Straight Talk.
Yeah.
It's still on. Anybody want to look it up? You can see it all on.
It's great.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
Straight Talk with Mike Gimbel. It's still out there.
Guys, he's a living legend out in Maryland, Baltimore area. Like I said, one of my buddies that lives out there obviously knew of him when I sent him the picture. So I will tell you this, we have to cut the show off because we honestly, I'm going to have Mike back because we could talk about this for 3 straight days because we have so much in common. But I wanted to get the backstory of like how actually Mike got through his journey through life, and it's quite a story. And I'm telling you, please watch that documentary called Synanon Fix. It's an amazing documentary. My wife and I watched it, and it was I couldn't believe. I mean, he's telling it, and you really have to watch it to understand like what was going on there. But we have to cut the show off now. But I just want to thank everybody for listening. Please come back and continue to follow us on social media. And Michael, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. It was awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Look, like you said, you and I at this point in our life, our job is to help people.
And honestly,
that's our job.
If we can help one person, you've helped millions, and I hope to be down the same path you are. You're an inspiration and somebody that I look up to. So thank you.
My pleasure.
God bless everybody.